Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Boston Balling. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut. It's been a crazy, crazy weekend of March Madness. There has been a lot of fun games and a lot of surprising results. And I hope that people's brackets are somewhat bearable still. I mean, mine, I don't really want to talk about mine right now, but I hope some people at least have a portion of their Final Four team still remaining in this what is a crazy tournament now. So it's going to be a fun rest of the tournament. We'll see kind of what happens, but I hope everyone had their fair share of college basketball for the weekend, and I know I did. Hope everybody's having a good start to the week, and I'm excited to be back with you guys. I actually have a friend of mine, Jeff Morrone, joining me on today's edition of the podcast. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. My bracket's a mess, but that just comes with March Madness. But I'm doing very well. Just happy that we have a March Madness this year. So that's the most exciting part about it. I don't care about my bracket. I'm just happy to watch college basketball.
Yeah, once I realized that my brackets were kind of busted, I decided I'm just going to root for the teams that I would like to see win the games and a lot of the upsets, and not go for the teams that I will help my bracket, because there's no point anymore. Because even if they do help my bracket, they're still too busted where it's not going to help anyway or make a difference.
Yeah, I don't know. I like it. It doesn't help. Like I was making a joke too with my dad. I don't think anyone picked like Albine, Texas, or Albine Christian University to win. And I
Yeah.
said to my dad jokingly one night, I was like, Albine's going to win, or I might be saying their college name wrong. And they won. He looked at me and goes, you better go play the lottery or something, because make that prediction. I was like, I don't know. I was like, it's just been a crazy year. There's been a lot of upsets. I think a lot of the blue bloods are not in it either. So it's been interesting for sure.
I know a couple people that put them, but not a lot. And certainly nobody putting Oral Roberts to even win the first round against Ohio State, and now they're in the Sweet 16. So, um,
Hey, I'm happy Oral Roberts won. I'm a Michigan guy, so for football, so I'm not a Ohio State person. So go go Oral Roberts all the way. That's my team now.
yeah, that's who I'm cheering for from now on, I think, too. Them or Loyola Chicago, maybe.
Yes, definitely Loyola Chicago for me as well too. So hopefully they can make it to the Final Four. And root for Sister Jean. She deserves one.
She does to deserve one, yeah, and she needs her good luck charm too. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that plays out. But happy to have you on the show tonight. Why don't you just start off talking about kind of like how your sports interest started and how you got involved with sports originally.
Yeah, my sports interest started on first of all, thank you for having me on the show. It's nice to be on the other side and not not asking the questions. So it's nice to get interviewed. It's been different. So first of all, thank you very much for having me on. But my sports interest started at a very young age. My whole family's always been into sports, so basketball is really big in our family. My grandfather was a big basketball player. He actually played in like college, was going to play. He had his full right to play at Syracuse. I don't know what happened there. So, and then my father was a big high school basketball player too. And I just grew up playing the sport and being around it. And it's just been a big passion in my life. And then obviously just grew into other passions, and growing up in New England and having a grandfather was a huge Red Sox fan, obviously influenced me to be a big Red Sox fan. And the only person I'm not a fan of in New England, and everyone's probably going to question that, is the Patriots. I'm a 49ers fan, but it's just my sports interest has always been a big part of my life. I coached basketball for a while, 10 years. I run a sports podcast for high school sports right now. I used to run a podcast that I used to speak with professional athletes too. I've worked with professional athletes in my past, like training basketball. So it's just been a cool journey of sports, and it's always got me through some tough times. Either just going outside shooting hoops or just working with someone.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that you have a pretty big sports background and just being involved in basketball, especially, which I assume is your favorite sport.
Yeah.
I know, like, for those of you that don't know, I was actually on Jeff's podcast recently, like a month or so, maybe 3 weeks ago, something like that, to talk about the Celtics. And so that was a fun time. So you definitely have, a lot of knowledge about sports, and it's always cool being involved in something you love, because we grew up watching sports, and just I think about the fact that, like, I'm sitting here getting to do something I'd be doing anyway on the side, watching sports, you know what I mean? And we were just talking off air about my new job, which is also in sports too. But it's just crazy to think about how much joy it can bring you if you're doing something you love and being involved in sports like that, if that's your passion like us.
Yeah, it's awesome, and I think podcasting has gotten so big too, and I think it's been such a big outlet for everyone. I feel like everyone starts a podcast, and it's great because you get to talk about sports, and it's great to kind of it's an escape. It's from your day job. It's nice to kind of, like for me at least. I mean, I'm an accountant on the side, like for in real life, and then on the side I do like podcasting for sports or to do basketball. And it's just a nice to get relief to get away from, the numbers. And I mean, I'd rather talk about basketball numbers than the accounting numbers. So, but it's just a nice to get away from like the job world and talk to people about sports. It's just awesome. I mean, you came on my show. We had a great time. It's nice to talk Celtics with somebody. Every kid that I talked to is a LeBron fan, so it's tough to kind of to get them into the Celtics. Some are Celtics fans, but but it was great. We had a great time.
Yeah, definitely. So why don't you, while we're on the topic, just tell people a little bit about your podcast, how you started it, and kind of generally what your podcast focuses on.
Yeah. So my podcast is called the Rhody Runback, and the podcast is generally just on Rhode Island high school sports. What I found out when I lived in Dallas for a little while is I found out that there's really the news does a great job of what they do, but there's no real like outlet for us in Rhode Island to cover our sports in high school, or kids don't get the credit that they deserve, or like there's no interviews or anything like that. And I used to do it a while ago, and then I stopped. And I found out as I was coming back up from Rhode Island, I was like, I'm just going to do a Rhode Island-based sports podcast on high school sports. And it just grew. It was awesome. It's been growing very fast, but I wanted to do something different where we just focused on high school basketball. I did like a pro athlete one, which was fun. And I still kind of do that as well too, but mostly just now doing the high school sports one. So I interview players, I cover the high school games. We do like a live show where we have games, and like we talk about like a recap. We kind of treat it like a sports center for like high school sports pretty much. So basketball was like the major one that we like. It was just a push to give it a shot. It was a short season. It was easy to do. Like every weekend we'd do a Sunday recap show in the morning, and it went great. So it's been awesome to, be a part of Rhode Island sports and cover Rhode Island sports and continue to help Rhode Island sports grow and get players noticed and help them hopefully get recruited and get them going in the right direction where they need to go. So that's pretty much the main focus of the podcast now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's such a unique concept too, because not a lot of people have a podcast that's strictly based on high school athletes. And it's awesome that you're kind of getting their names out there and just getting them noticed for their futures and their hopefully careers in the sport that they love, which is basketball or whatever sport it is that you're talking about. But I know you do focus a lot on basketball players. So it's really cool that you have that concept and that outlet for those kids to really be able to get their names out there and share their passion for their sport.
Yeah, it's awesome. They love it. They enjoy it. It's been a lot of fun. They're enjoying it so much. They love seeing it and like, being able to get interviewed. And I actually just went to like AU tryouts recently. Actually took my nephew, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're the Rhody Runback guy." I was like, "Yeah," like so. But it's good. I always wanted that when I was a kid. So I'm glad that I can hopefully maybe I can return the favor and hopefully get it to bigger and better, more sports. We're going to start covering golf and start volleyball and stuff like that. So try to give everyone notice as much as possible.
That's so cool. Yeah, we actually have a question here from Randy, one of my biggest supporters. Thank you, Randy, for listening to the show and for supporting it. I always appreciate it. He wants to know what your favorite interview on your podcast was.
Man, there's been a lot. There's been a lot of good ones. Actually, I think the coach of St. Andrews has been one of my favorites. So the coach of St. Andrews, he actually coached Michael Carter-Williams, who plays in the NBA now. He coached him, and that guy, he reminds me of Rodney Dangerfield. The stories he would share, just like stuff that he's just like very self-deprecating, doesn't take himself seriously. And you wouldn't think, because this guy has like coached NBA players, D1, like two of his players were in, or one of them still actually in it. Cole Swider, who plays for Villanova, he coached Cole Swider, who's in Villanova, and then Keegan Records, who played at Colgate. He coached both of them. They're both in the NCAA tournament. But you talk to this guy, and he tells he had some great stories, and you would never know that this guy is like this great basketball coach, this like legend who's friends with all these other college basketball coaches, just drops names. He's like, oh, I had dinner with Bobby Huggins one night. I was like, oh my God, like what? He just like dropped it so casually, but cool guy. Just like so funny. He makes fun of himself all the time. He's a big pizza fan. I know that. We make fun of. He always would be like, my secret, Jeff. Like, my problem. So yeah, he's a great guy. I really enjoyed our conversation.
That's so awesome. Yeah, it seems like you've talked to some cool people and just been able to really get to know a lot of people. And that's something I will say about having a podcast is you really get to meet a lot of cool people and have some great conversations. I mean, I can attest to that too.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a community. It's like a smaller community, and you get to meet people as you go through, and it's really cool. I mean, we met through podcasting, and it's awesome that it's cool to meet someone that's a diehard Celtics fan and Red Sox fan too. So it's great.
Yeah. Anyway, that's really awesome, and I know that your podcast is going to continue to grow, hopefully, and I'm excited. I look forward to seeing your future episodes and everything. I always enjoy checking it out. But yeah. So on that note, we have some basketball to talk about.
Yes, we do.
And a team that has been nothing short of frustrating, for lack of a better word, the Celtics. And this is actually a perfect subject to talk about tonight because the trade deadline is on Thursday. And you and I have talked about this before, and I know we're always exchanging messages during games about just how terrible they look, how terrible they're playing, and just how bad they look in games, essentially. And so while we are talking about it, we are expressing our mutual frustration in Danny Ainge and the lack of making a trade. And so now we're at the point where there's only a couple days left to make a trade, less than 48 hours until the actual deadline. And there's been talk of trades. Now they're saying that Aaron Gordon is their main trade target. And there's some names being thrown around that would be paired into that trade. I saw last night the possibility that maybe they would trade Marcus Smart and 2 first-round picks to get Aaron Gordon and Evan Fournier. How do you feel about that? First of all, do you think that the Celtics need to make a trade? I think I know your answer to this question. And I think you know my answer to this question. But first of all, do you think that they even need to make a trade?
Yeah, they need to do something. It's just been a disappointing season. When you're 21-21, you lose to the Memphis Grizzlies last night as well in overtime, which, Memphis is a young team, but I feel like we just have better experience. They just need to do something. It's either they need bench help. Their bench is all players of third year. I mean, except for Jeff Teague and Tristan Thompson and minus a couple other guys. It's like a weird mix of young and old, and a lot of those younger guys don't really play, but they need to do something. It's disappointing. Like you said, it's been a weird, disappointing season. It doesn't seem like the team gels in any which way. They got to do something. I'm sick of watching, a team with high expectations, and I don't think they can get past the Brooklyn. I don't think they get past the 76ers. I don't even think they can get past Milwaukee because they just got PJ Tucker as well too, and I don't think they can get past the Milwaukee Bucks team. They'd be lucky to get past the second round.
I agree with you. Yeah, watching this team right now, I'm like, there is no way that they can do and keep playing the way that they're playing right now with the team they have now and be able to actually make some serious moves when it comes to the playoffs and be an actual contender. I don't look at this team as a contender right now, which is sad because on paper you do have a lot of great talent there, but something is not working. And we've emphasized for so long that they need to do something. But what they do want to do in acquiring Aaron Gordon, don't get me wrong, I do think that would be a good move. But pairing that with Evan Fournier for what they would give up, I don't necessarily know that that's a really fair trade-off. I feel like 2 first-round picks and Marcus Smart for those two might be a lot, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Because for me personally, when I read that last night, I initially was like, that's actually a lot for an Aaron Gordon and Evan Fournier who, I think Aaron Gordon is a good player, but I have, kind of mixed feelings on Evan Fournier. And I just don't know that based on where those two players are at right now, if it's a really fair trade-off with how clutch we've seen Marcus Smart be for this team this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. like this, I don't know, with Aaron Gordon. I'm not the biggest fan of Aaron Gordon. I actually would take Vucevic. I would rather have Vucevic over
Yeah, me too.
over Aaron Gordon any day. But I don't know how much he's going to add. I'm not too sure what Aaron Gordon is going to give you. I mean, he can give you 20 points per game, but how much is he going to blend in with these guys? How much is he going to gel in with these guys? And then Fournier, I'm not the biggest fan of him either as well too. So I don't know how to. I think they're giving up way too much for Smart. Giving up Smart, I think Smart has saved him so many games and defensive wise and with his defense and him stepping up and being such a great player. I think he's done so much for them. And then you just have Aaron Gordon, who how is he going to mesh with this team? What's this He's another young guy that you're bringing in with another bunch of other young guys, and I'd rather actually see him get LaMarcus Smart. LaMarcus Aldridge. Sorry, I just mixed their two names together. I just made it clear out of my brain. I'd rather see him get him over than getting Gordon, but I just don't see what the mix is, how well he'll mix in with his team. I think he'll be a good rebounder and what they're kind of missing. But he reminds me of a lesser Blake Griffin, I guess. He's super athletic and really. But I feel like I would rather have Griffin over than Aaron Gordon, I guess is the best way to say it.
I was so angry when he went to the Nets. I was like, are you kidding me?
I know, we talked about that too. I was like, come on.
Yeah, I remember you messaged me right away and you were like, did you see the Nets news? And I was like, yeah, and I'm not happy about it. I'd prefer to have him too. The thing about Gordon was, he asked for a trade. He asked for a trade out of Orlando, and then he didn't ask to come here, but basically said he wants to go to the Celtics. And so I think that's why he's now on the Celtics radar and emerging as their top trade option, because they did say that is most likely the trade they would make would be for him. And that name was not somebody that for a while was really thrown around at all. And I do wonder if it's because he came out and said that he wants to play in Boston and be with the Celtics, that's why they're trading for him, because he was never really an option as somebody that we thought that maybe the Celtics would acquire. I mean, Vucevic actually was a name that was being thrown out there before. And this Aaron Gordon thing just seems to be emerging all of a sudden as kind of a player they might pick up. And I do agree with you on the rebounding. I think that they could use somebody like him on that side of the ball that can get a lot of rebounds because they need that. But in terms of the chemistry, I just don't know that he's somebody that would really vibe with what they have going on. And I think chemistry is an issue with this team in general. I don't really think that they have a lot of it going on off the court as much as we would want them to, and it's showing when they play. And basketball is a big chemistry sport. You need to be able to mesh with your teammates off the court too. And I don't think they have a lot of chemistry to begin with, but I just worry that throwing somebody like that in might kind of make it even worse. And who even knows? And Marcus Smart, I feel was kind of a mold for the team, especially defensively, but also personality-wise kind of too. He was one of those players that held the team together. So giving up somebody like him, I would hope to receive more than we would be receiving if that trade gets finalized as is this week.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I think Marcus Smart, he reminds me of Kendrick Perkins. I think he kind of reminds me of that Kendrick Perkins type player. It's more on the guard position, not the center. But just being just that anchor. That's he's a tough guy. He's not going to get pushed around. He's not going to let anyone push around his teammates. He's going to stick up for them and kind of go after him. And I kind of don't want to see that go away. I know he takes some dumb shots sometimes in games. He actually gets hot, but he thinks he's hot on fire, take a bad 3-pointer. But what he just brings to the team, it's tough, but I don't know what we have for trade assets too. I mean, we do have that giant trade exception that we could use for that, but I don't know what, Aaron Gordon's technically a star, I guess, but I don't know. I don't really, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of it.
I feel there's a lot more hype around him than the player that he actually is. Because, I even saw this tweet last night from somebody, and they were like, I don't really understand the hype around Aaron Gordon. He's not that great of a player. And I don't completely disagree with that. I feel he's hyped up more than what he actually brings. And I don't think he's a bad player by any means. And I don't think he's somebody that would hurt talent-wise to have on the team. I just don't know that he's somebody that can really come in and be the actual person that fills those shoes to make them be a serious playoff contender. Because I think that they need somebody that can help get them over the hump right now, and it doesn't seem to me like he's somebody that would really get them there. You know what I mean? I was hoping that they would be trading for somebody that's, a big name, is actually a really talented player, is a good leader on their team, and is somebody that could actually get them over the hump. And if we get him, I don't know if I'd feel much more confident than I do right now with them going to they'd go to the playoffs. They're in the playoffs right now just because the East is not that good. But as an early exit in the playoffs, I would feel like that's likely. Even if we acquire him, I just wouldn't feel like they did that much to improve. And you're giving up a couple first-round picks and Marcus Smart for him, who's been shooting a lot, but he's been shooting really well lately too.
Yeah, and like I said, that you're not going to get that defensive who makes that small, big plays that you need. There's so many times you could create literally a highlight reel where he's built the Celtics out in certain situations that they just had. And I think what we're just getting is they do, and then someone had brought that up. Yeah, I see it right there. They do need veteran. They need a veteran presence. I think they need a veteran leadership presence, honestly, on that team. Like I would rather see LaMarcus Aldridge be the guy that they sign instead, because he's a free. I think they released him to Spurs. I think he'd be better fit just because he's a leader. Some veteran leadership with Kemba Walker would help because this team's young. I mean, look, this is a young Celtics team. I don't know how much Jeff Teague and Tristan Thompson are speaking up too in the locker room, but this team is super. I think our average age has got to be 25.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean those. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, like the dynamic duo, they're like 22 and 23, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's overall a young team. And we've heard this narrative the last few years that the Celtics had all this potential, but they couldn't finish the job because they're a young team. But it's like, how much longer can we really use that excuse that it's a young team? Like now they have their feet wet and they've had the playoff experience. So now the young players know what it's like to be in the playoffs. And if you do think that the team is still too young, which it kind of is, relative to other teams in the Eastern Conference, then you do need to get some veteran leadership on the team. So I do agree with that. But the question is, who is that going to be? Is Aaron Gordon really going to be able to be somebody that would be a really, really good locker room presence for this team? Because, I love Kemba. He's my guy. When he played at UConn, he's one of my favorite ever UConn players. And just will always be one of my favorite players. And so I love having him on the team, but I feel like it can't just be him as the main guy. There kind of needs to be somebody else too. You know what I mean? And I think that players like Tatum, I think, need to step up more too and become more of a leader for the team, because Tatum obviously is going to be one of the best players that probably we ever watch when he continues to develop. But from a leadership standpoint, he's going to need to be one of those players that steps up too if they want to be able to make a run like some of these other teams. You look at teams like the Nets, they have the veteran leadership on that team. You know what I mean? And teams like Milwaukee or teams like Philly. That team is playing really, really good basketball this year. And they have the veteran leadership. So you think about all these teams and you point to players that are like, oh yeah, that person's a leader on this team, and we need more of that. And I don't think Kemba is a bad leader, and I think that he probably does what he can, and I think that he's a good team player too. But this isn't enough. There needs to be more than that right now.
Yeah, and you bring up Philly, and this they're kind of a team that's starting to remind me of Philadelphia in the playoffs. It's kind of that team that's always that the hype is there. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna be great, and then it's just average. And then you get to the playoffs, and then you get eliminated in the second round, and that's what they're starting to kind of remind me of. And I'm not a big fan of that, because I'd rather not go through that. Because the first 2 years were yeah, this is gonna be great, we're gonna be great. Now we're kind of getting into there has to be something done because someone's not gelling or something's not meshing right. And actually, I heard a name too that was swirling around, and JJ Redick, actually, I heard his name was swirling around the rumors that they were going to try to pick up.
That's interesting too. I think I might have read something briefly on that recently, but I haven't really seen it since, because I don't know how serious they are about pursuing that as an option. But is he somebody that you think would mesh well with the Celtics team right now?
I think so. I honestly think so because his shooting like presence, I think even just coming off the bench kind of gives them a different like outlook than, Semi Ojeleye being in the corner all the time. Because if you're open, you're open. The reason why they're leaving you open, Semi, if you're listening to this, sorry, but JJ Redick, I think would be a great fit for them. I think just coming off that bench with a T or Tristan Thompson, or even having him start and kind of go with that. Have Kimba, JJ, Tatum, Brown, and then Tice as your starting lineup. I mean, it spreads the floor a lot more, which is now the NBA style, and you have that 3-point shooters. Now you at least have 5 guys who can shoot the three that kind of like separate out there. The only issue of that is if you play against a Philadelphia or a Milwaukee, who's going to guard.
That's the thing. It's going to be a challenge playing against those teams. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I agree with you, actually. I think I would like that fit actually a lot better than some of these other names that they've thrown around and the Gordons and people like that. I mean, I think that those types of players are good players, but what the Celtics are looking for, I actually think Redick would be a better fit too.
Yeah. My dream scenario would be like LaMarcus Aldridge and JJ Redick come on to the Celtics, and it's just like, that's like, there's your veteran leadership, everything's taken care of, and then like
I'd give up the 2 first-round picks and all of that for that, probably. Yeah. That would be considered a successful move at the deadline to me.
Yes, same here. I mean, I know they're older, but like you don't really need LaMarcus Aldridge to drop 20 and 10 for you. You need him to maybe give you 15 and 8. At least he's getting rebounds, and that presence is there. He can still play, and he's a great, great player. So at least you could definitely get something out of him. And then JJ can still shoot the ball very well. So I take that any day.
We do need one of my biggest concerns with this team right now is defense in general, because they are just really, really bad on the defensive end of even last night they were horrendous on defense, and that's why the game was even as close as it was. And I mean, granted, you have players like John Morant who are just out of this world in their own little league of their own, really playing basketball. But the defense is just so bad, and that's a huge reason why they're losing these games that they're not supposed to be losing to teams that are not as good, that should be winnable games on paper going into the games. They're just giving up a lot of easy points, and they're leaving a lot of people open from 3.
Yeah, it's bad. I feel like they just play down a level. It's like, I think they come in and they take teams like not serious, like a Memphis. And granted, Memphis is a great young team. They got John Morant, Jaren Jackson. Like those guys are like can play. And then I got I think Kyle Anderson too. So like that's a good young team that we're gonna be like down the line. It's probably gonna be like a contender to keep that squad together. But our team on paper we're better. We're just like, you could tell we're better. And like I don't. Did Tatum sit out last night?
No, he played. I remember I saw him play. I didn't see the whole game. I saw like some of the second half though in overtime, and he was playing.
Yeah, I thought maybe I read something wrong or something like that.
No, he played.
I was watching college basketball too last night. So but I just don't. Yeah, I just don't see I feel like they just play down to the level of teams that they're supposed to beat. But then you play the Lakers. And they play extremely well against the Lakers, even though they lost. They play against the Utah Jazz, which I thought, even that game, they might have found their themselves in that game and been like, this is a turn we've lost, but this is a turn.
They played recently. Yeah, I mean, that was actually a good, close, well-fought, competitive game against the best team in the Western Conference. You know what I mean? That was a impressive game for them to play against a Utah team that's just on fire this year.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to be the turning point. And they lost that game. And, I mean, it's always disappointing to lose, but I was also optimistic after that game at how competitive and close they kept that game, because I was like, okay, they can roll with these good teams. This is a good sign. They lost, but it was close and it wasn't a blowout, and it shows that they can contend with some of these teams, but the inconsistency, and it's the defense and just giving up all of these points just to anybody, any team. And it's just this is something that needs to be figured out. So ideally, with a trade, it would be somebody that can play on both sides of the ball and can really step up on defense, because outside of Smart, there has not really been much defense going on really with anybody else on the team.
Yeah, it kills me. And you figure like having a guy like Smart would just be like an energy guy that like sparks you to play better defense, or like to give you that energy to be like, okay, well he's doing it. Like let me feed off of that energy, and I'll play good defense. And I'm like, and I'm actually kind of surprised because Jaylen Brown is like I thought he'd be a better two-way player than he is now. Like he had showed some signs to be like a really great defender. And I don't know what's going on this year. And same thing with Tatum. Like we have such a long team. Like just like those two guys are just like interchangeable. They can guard anyone, and it's just like slide your feet. Like get to the spot. Like get where you need to be. It drives me nuts. It's like don't be lazy. Don't focus everything on like on offense. But I feel like Brown. There's times where Brown like plays extremely good defense, and there's times where Brown doesn't. But it's also a team effort. Like there's no help, no one slides. Sometimes I feel like they don't even talk.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm like, who's communicating and like, what are you trying to do right now? Because I see so much when they're playing that appears to be a miscommunication issue and like people not knowing what's going on out there. And that's a serious problem. That's not a problem that they should be having right now at this point in the season.
No, definitely not. And I know COVID and everything, but they really didn't have much of a break. So like you pretty much brought in all the same guys that you took down to the bubble. And now that you're playing with, it should be the same exact team that you guys had. Like it should be the same thing. Guys are communicating, guys are playing well together, unless they're just tired. But there's no excuse because there's other teams that were in the bubble that were playing great basketball, like Utah right now and Phoenix are playing great basketball.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of teams playing really good basketball right now. And I look at even the Eastern Conference right now, and I'm like, okay, so we have some teams here that they probably may be able to get by. But then I'm even looking at the teams that are just at the bottom of like the playoff tier of the East. So like the eight seeds and up or whatever. And I'm looking at teams like the Knicks, and I'm like, I don't even know if they can beat the Knicks right now either. And that's like a crazy statement to make considering that it's the Knicks. But they have some really young good talent on that team too, and just the way that they've been playing this year. I mean, they obviously are not like they don't have a winning record or anything like that. They're not like one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, but they're barely in one of those bottom playoff spots just because the East is weaker than the West this year. It just is the reality. But teams like that, like I don't even know if they could if they were playing the Knicks in a 7-game series right now. I don't know that the Celtics would win.
Yeah, that's a good point because honestly, Tom Thibodeau gets like the best of all his players, and I think Tom Thibodeau is a guy that you bring in if you need like to rebuild and like get the best players. So this stuff gets
that's why they brought him in.
Yeah, and they look great, and it's kind of you laugh at the Knicks. I used to laugh at the Knicks, and now
because you can't not, but.
Yeah, but now you can't laugh because they look great, and then I wouldn't want to play them because that's a hungry team. That's a team that would probably die for the loose balls if we didn't die for them, and like want to win a game and make a name for themselves and win a playoff game or win a series for the first time. And God knows how long they won a playoff series or anything like that. Sorry, Knicks fans, if you're listening. But you figured they would get somebody or something. Like I don't know, they just need to play extremely hard defense. I don't know where it is. I don't know what's going on. It's like a lackluster, and I hate to say it, and maybe it is Brad Stevens. Maybe they need to move on, and I'd rather them not, but I like him, and like I think he's a great system coach, and reminds me of Greg. It could be a Greg Popovich, but I don't know if the guys are buying it. It could be him too. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I have a couple things actually. First of all, yeah, when it comes to the Knicks, like they're one of those teams this year that sneakily could be really, really good if they get hot at the right time. Like they're one of those teams that like if they click and get hot right when the playoffs are starting, they're a team that I really think could be really competitive with a lot of other teams in the East. And that's crazy to say, but with the way they've been playing this year and their coaching and their talent right now, I do think that, because I've seen them go on streaks where they're playing really, really good basketball. So they're one of those teams that if they get hot at the right time, they could make a serious run. And that's scary, weird to think, but it's true. And then, like you said about coaching, that's a really important thing. And with Tibbs and stuff, I think it's important to note that, yeah, he's the type of coach you bring in if you're in rebuild mode. And the Knicks actually really were. And they have this young talent now, so that rebuild is going pretty well. And in a couple years, I think they're going to be scary good. And I think they have a lot going for them. But you mentioned Brad Stevens, and we actually had somebody in the comments ask about coaching. I was so like at the beginning of the season or, a couple months in when people were saying we need to fire him, I was so against that because I was like, no, getting a new coach right now is not what the answer is. Like we let's stick with him, see what happens. Like we can't just get another coach. Like that's not the solution. But maybe it is. Maybe they need a change. Like maybe it's now getting to the point where we're starting to realize that maybe his mechanism and his way of coaching and his strategy just isn't working with this team. And I don't think they're going to get rid of him now. I do think he at least has till the end of the season. But I think if they don't make a deep playoff run this year, then maybe he is gone and that they just move on and maybe get a change in coaching. And maybe that's the issue because it's not a lack of talent on this team by any means. That never was the issue. And I don't think it's a lack of desire either. It doesn't seem like but so maybe it is him. Maybe the players just need a change and maybe him with this team just doesn't work.
Yeah. And it could be like this, I hate to refer it back to the Sixers, but it could be like the Sixers situation with Brett Brown was the issue, I think, for them, because now look at them. They're like doing really well. They're a top team in the East. Joel Embiid's an MVP candidate. And it looked like they just weren't using the assets that they had correctly on that team. And now I think they're using them correctly, and they look great. Because there was a time where I think a lot of people were thinking about trading Ben Simmons and moving him, and because I thought he was affecting Joel Embiid, but it kind of obviously that's why I don't coach. I'm not in the NBA coaching because or a general manager because but I think that's why. And again, Doc Rivers, I think Doc Rivers is just a great I think he's one of the best coaches in the league, and I think he does great things for teams and gets teams to buy in. And maybe that's what the Celtics need. I don't know if this system really meshes well with what the Celtics have right now, or it's and Danny has to make a decision too with what he decides of what he needs to do for the team and what's better for them. Because it does come down to coaching it down at some point. Because from what I heard, is that they don't really assign captains he doesn't assign captains on his teams.
Yeah.
And that's like the other thing too. So you're going to have guys that are speaking out that shouldn't be speaking out, that maybe you have I don't think Rob Williams would speak out. He seems like a quiet guy, but the Time Lord is telling someone to do something and they're like, why are you telling me to do that? Like, I've been in the league forever. So, you might have stuff like that going on behind the scenes that we just don't see, or the guys are just not buying in anymore. They're just kind of like, all right, we're going through the motions of everything. And I think maybe it could come down to a coaching change for, like you said, I don't think they'll get rid of him this year, but I think they'll probably, if they don't make some sort of run or do something different, even if they make a trade, it doesn't change anything, then I think he might be out of a job. And Indiana's hiring. I know that. Indiana University's hiring. So, but
I read something about that too, and Brad Stevens actually.
Yeah, I've heard that because he referred himself as was a Celtics coach or in the past tense or something like that. And
or how he was. There was this stuff going around about him making comments indicating that he wasn't really invested and really interested in coaching this team anymore. And some of the statements that he made in press conferences and things like that kind of made people feel like maybe he's not as invested anymore as he was. And maybe that is the case. Maybe it's a two-way thing though. Maybe it's, a conversation happens and you realize that neither him nor the program are a good match for each other anymore. And I had high hopes for him when he came in to coach this team because I do think he is a good coach. I don't think he's a bad coach. I just don't know if it necessarily works here. And, Gordon Hayward, we know that he had a relationship with him, and then it's just too bad because Gordon got injured. So we never really got to see as much of that relationship when he was with the Celtics, but then him not being there anymore either. And now it's okay, he's still working with this team that he's tried to push and get to the finals for, a while now, and something isn't working. So maybe you start to have that conversation okay, how are we going to handle this at the end of the season if we're back where we were before? Because this is going to end up being really frustrating if they go through this whole season, and even if they do make a trade and then they're a first or second round exit. And I do think that if that is the case, that it would start to be a reflection on Brad Stevens.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Brad Stevens, like, well, thing about him is he gets the best of like his younger players. Like, if he knows, like, that team that almost made the finals without the Kyrie Irving or Gordon Hayward, and we had Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, I think he got the best of that team that season. And like, we're like, wow, this guy can really coach and stuff like that. But maybe, having those guys for so long, it's, being eliminated so many times, it's kind of wearing on them. And it's kind of like, okay, like, maybe it is time for a change, because sometimes, NBA is also just a business as well too. So it'd be interesting to see, because it's like you said, first or second round early exits kind of just, getting disappointed, or getting to and keep getting onto the cusp of like going to the finals. It's also just disappointing because we're always I feel like we're always in the conference finals. We're a game away.
Oh yeah, always
like,
conversation as like one of those teams that could really do damage and make a big run. And you get to the postseason, and then a lot of this stuff starts to get exposed. A lot of the weaknesses, and just it being evident that they're, that they're a young team and just don't have as much experience, and all of these things that we question during the regular season kind of comes out. Do you feel that they have enough bench depth right now? Because at the beginning of the season, I was like, I had kind of high hopes for the bench, with people like Tristan Thompson coming in, Jeff Teague, and players like that who were just kind of just at the beginning of the year were just a disappointment. But even now, still, that has not improved. And they're a team that depth has been an issue for the last few years and never seems to really fully be addressed. I mean, Robert Williams off the bench has been impressive lately. He's put up some good numbers offensively lately coming off the bench, but in general, this is just always an issue with this team. It's been an issue for the last few years, and it still hasn't seemed to be anything that is better than other teams in the East. And I think that there's other teams that can do more damage off their bench than we can.
Yeah, they need bench help. I like am not happy with the bench play of like, and Peyton Pritchard's been playing great, and Peyton Pritchard and Rob Williams have had like a great connection. They've been playing like, that's like been the bright side of the bench. And if I might hold on to those two guys, but like Teague had a great game last night. But like Thompson, and I thought the same thing. I thought as soon as they signed those guys, I'm like, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be great off of the bench. It's gonna look good. We're gonna like, excel. These guys would be great leaders coming off the bench. And then it's just like, man, their bench is not what I thought it was going to be. I mean, Grant Williams, they're just not playing up to what we expected and like what was happening. And it's just a weird mix of like, you have that second year guy and the rookies, and then you have 3 or 4 year guys coming off the bench, and then you have those veterans, Teague and Thompson, and it's just like you figured they would all kind of like fall and do great like under Teague with Thompson and Tristan Thompson out there, but it just seems like there's just no energy, like, I don't know. There's no guy to give you a spark off the bench when you really need the score. Like, we don't have that 6-man that we've always had. I feel like as a Celtics like team that we've always had over the years and everything. We just need a 6-man that could really come off the bench and, all right, we're down 10, but we need someone to come in and score, like can give us like 10, 8 points, or be the energy guy that we need. And like even Smart used to be that guy on defense, was the energy guy that come off the bench, but now he starts too. And you just don't really have that bench. I just like, we need bench depth bad. I think that's also a killer too. That could also be a reason why this team's not winning, because these guys could be tired. They're playing a lot of time. You're not getting a lot of scoring from their bench. I don't know what they rank in the league too for bench scoring as well.
Oh, it's not that good. I don't remember when I saw it, but it was a while ago, but it's not good. There's other teams that are much better with scoring off their bench than we are. And I think that that's going to be something that if it doesn't improve, which it likely won't at this point, at least this year, then that's going to be another thing that come the postseason is just going to hurt them, like we see, every year. And it's like if Brad Stevens doesn't have enough players to be able to put in the game that he feels like can step up and be clutch, then what can we really do? Because we've seen things kind of go significantly downhill when he pulls his starters. We've seen this happen in a lot of different games where you take out some of those starters and things just start to go downhill, and you can't be doing that in serious games down the stretch when it's, you make the playoffs or you don't because of how you perform in these games that are close down the line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's tough because I see him do different rotations where like Brown gets taken out early and then he's playing with the second unit, or or vice versa. Tatum's coming in playing off the second unit as well too. But it just seems like there's not enough power coming off that second unit where those guys are going to be like, we need this, and we're not the Golden State Warriors, where the Golden State Warriors basically didn't have a second unit when they won some of their championships with Kevin Durant and stuff because they had so much firepower. Like we need the extra firepower coming off that bench.
Yeah, I know. We really do. I mean, it's just so frustrating just game after game when you see these problems blatantly in front of you. And it's like he's had plenty of time to do something about this and he just hasn't done it yet. And you sit there and you're like, he's watching the games too. You know what I mean? It's not like it's just us. Like Danny's sitting there, watching the games every time. Like it shows him in the stands and for a lot of those games. And it's just like, so what are you not seeing, or are you seeing it and you just don't know how to address it, or what? And I don't think it's that he isn't aware, because he is aware and he's said that over and over again. I just don't know that he wants to settle for something that he feels like he's giving up too much either.
Yeah, Danny frustrates me, and like I just feel like he's in that weird in between stage where it's either you go all in or you don't go all in. And we're not all in right now because I think we should be all in, and he's not all in at all. Like, I just feel like he doesn't want to make a move. And when he tries to make a move, it's always a Danny deal breaker because he always does something crazy where it's like, we got to get it in. Like, we got to throw in another superstar for with the Gordon Hayward trade. We talked about that. But like, that frustrated me because like we would have filled the need, right? Like, we would have got Miles Turner. That would have been a center need that we needed. A guy that can spread the floor. He can also get you rebounds. He's a presence. He's there. He can create defense. He's an anchor. He's there. So it would have been great to have him. But Danny always has to, try to swindle people as always. Sorry to bash him on your show. I hope you can get him on the show one day, Danny, if you're listening.
If I get him on the show and he hears this first, he might not.
Yeah, exactly.
We might back out at the last minute if he decides to listen to this first.
Can we cut this somehow? But I'm just like I don't know. We're in that weird in between phase where I think he likes to gather assets and trade them, and like it's just to the point now. It's like you got to go all in or nothing. I like to There's been GMs like I hate to use it, and the Lakers GM, they're aggressive. They're like. They go out there and they get veterans. They sign guys that they think they're going to be good for a championship team. And then there's us. We just kind of, we kind of like let these guys grow. And I know we have a great young team if you let that team grow. But like, at what point are those guys going to get frustrated? Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum are going to request. One of them's going to request a trade. And when's that going to happen if you don't make a move? Because they know they're on the cusp of winning a championship too.
Yeah, I was thinking that also, and that was something I was going to bring up, was you really do have to wonder how much longer these young players are going to want to stick around, because these players, like, they're going to want to win a championship, you know what I mean? And they're not going to want to stick around for a team that doesn't seem to be improving. It seems to be getting to the same place every year and isn't advancing. That's honestly why I was even surprised with Giannis signing that huge extension with Milwaukee, because, I mean, I don't know that they're a team that he can win a championship with right now either. But yeah, you have to wonder, like you said, if players like that would request a trade to somebody that they feel is more of a contender, because this is just the same pattern over and over again. And if you don't do something that genuinely puts them more in the running to go all the way, then I could see a lot of them getting frustrated, and I wouldn't blame them for that either, because it'd be for good reason.
Yeah, and then the NBA is not what it used to be, where guys are loyal and they stay with the same team forever and ever, and it doesn't matter. It's now, I think a lot of guys, it's the mentality of, I want a ring and I want to get traded to a team that's going to give me a ring. And the Celtics have just, we can't stay the middle of the road team anymore. We either got to get off the exit to go win a championship or get off the exit to rebuild. And you got to choose of which one, because they're just staying on the highway to safety area, I guess. I don't know how to say it, but I try to use a great analogy. It didn't work out very well. I was hoping to be quoted on ESPN tomorrow, but it's not going to happen. But anyways, it just doesn't work out. I just don't I don't know. He's got to make a decision. It's like, trade a guy get rid of some assets and bring in some veteran guys that you know are going to help the team, and you know that Jason and Jalen are going to learn from and can feed off of, and like give them that motivation that they need to like, you know, push themselves to another, like push themselves to 18 championships and like help them get over that road and actually make the finals. I don't care if they lose, you made the finals. I mean, it'd be great to win, but we got past the conference finals. Now we're in the finals, and maybe next year we compete again. But like, you have to, like I said, the Lakers GMs just, they go out and go get their guys and what they need. And then the Celtics, Danny, just, I don't know what I'm not sure what goes through his brain. I don't know what he's trying to do. I don't know if he's trying to swindle another team, but like, I don't know.
Nobody ever knows what he's doing, and it's so frustrating because everybody's waiting for him to do something. And I have to believe that he's in the process of doing something. I would be actually genuinely shocked if that deadline passes at 4 o'clock, whatever time it is on Thursday. I'm pretty sure it's 4 when the deadline actually is. And we haven't heard anything about the Celtics. And if he, at that point, when we reach this point in less than 48 hours and nothing's been done, I will actually be surprised, because there's still a lot in me that wants to trust him and wants to feel like he has something up his sleeve that he's in the process of working on right now, and maybe talking to teams and is looking to get something finalized in the next couple of days.
I hope so. I mean, we've been down this road too before with Danny's like all of the rumors. We're like, Celtics, we make trades, we're gonna do all this and blah blah blah. Everyone's in, like, and then it just like dies, and then you read about it the next day on Boston.com or wherever, on Twitter or wherever anyone gets their information these days, and it's just like, you know, he like threw in all these guys, but they didn't bite on it, or he just didn't want to give up so and so. So it's kind of tough. I would love to see something happen. I would love to see some kind of shakeup. I'm sick and tired of like just going down the middle of the road. I would love to win a championship. I'd love to, you know, rub it in all my friends' faces who are Lakers fans out west. Tell them that like, hey, what's up? We're on top of the world now. So we didn't win ours in a bubble, so we won ours in the regular season. So
yeah, but it's more of a real championship.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't win ours in a glorified AE tournament. All right. But you know, but I would like to see something like that happen, because it's just every year it's the same. So either he's got to change, or management's got to make a change. I mean, he's done great things for the team. And like, I loved how aggressive he was when they had the championship team that we had back in 2008. They were signing veteran guys who were going after PJ Brown, who was like,
oh, it was great.
Yeah. Like, we just had great guys. Like, we had a great, like, Sam Cassell was on the team. Like, those guys, like, I would love to see that again with this team, because we have some great players. It'd just be nice to kind of see that aggressiveness again.
Yeah, and I really would say in a regular circumstance that looking at this team right now, if they make no moves, they won't make the playoffs. But I actually do think miraculously, because of how weak the Eastern Conference is right now and the fact that they still managed to be in a playoff spot right now, that I think they will squeeze into the playoffs even if they don't make a move. But if they don't make a move, it definitely won't be past like the first or second round. And second round is generous, I feel like, too, even.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. And thank God they don't do the rule that they're going to implement, like getting rid of the conferences, and it's just like the top 16 teams.
I know.
We'd be a 16 seed. We'd be hanging on by a thread and just hoping that we could get in, because it'd be all West and like.
It'd be mostly West, yeah.
Yeah,
the Western Conference is so much better, but.
Yeah, it's crazy how stacked they are. It's crazy, like, you know, the teams like the Suns, they make a move, they get Chris Paul. Chris Paul took them to another level, and then the Jazz be fully healthy, and they look like one of the tougher teams to beat. And you know, you got the Lakers, and actually LeBron finally got hurt, so he might be off the steroids. And then Clippers are gonna, you know, we'll see what happens. So with them as well. So then they have Tyronn Lue. So I don't know. It'd be interesting. I'm just frustrated being to that middle of the road team. So.
Yeah, no, I know. The middle of the road, like, I'd rather be bad and then know we have to rebuild than be middle of the road and not do anything and not be moving in any sort of direction.
Yeah, it's tough. It's like, and then what are we gonna do? Like, we're not Oklahoma City where we have like 17,000 draft picks going for the next 10 years. Like, we have to make some kind of move, I think, to be that championship team.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you. I'm just going to be waiting closely the next couple days to see what does happen before that deadline hits, because this is going to be big, and it needs to be something that I hope is worth it. And I hope that he's not going to give up too much for somebody that might be just, like average when it comes to playing on this team, and that would just be disappointing. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see how this all goes down over the next couple days, and just what they do, and then how the rest of the season goes after that. But I enjoyed you being on the show, and I definitely appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to me about the Celtics. And I know we'll be still exchanging our messages back and forth during games. But before I let you go, just let everybody know like where they can find you and your show.
Oh yeah. First of all, thank you very much for having me on the show. I had always a great time. I love what you're doing, and just love seeing Boston Ball and growing and seeing what you're doing with the show. So it's awesome to see, and keep doing what you're doing because it's going to be something big down the line. For my show, for anyone that's interested in Rhode Island sports and hearing me talk, you can catch me at our Instagram is at the Rhody Runback, and then we're also on the Twitter is at the Rhody Runback as well too. And then you can find us on YouTube and all podcast platforms, so you can see videos and all that stuff. So if you ever want to listen about Rhode Island sports, come find us at the Rhody Runback. Subscribe and like and share. So,
I get the promotion in there,
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Well, everyone, I hope everybody has a great rest of their week. As always, I appreciate everybody coming and listening every week. Wouldn't be able to do the show without any of you, so definitely appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you all again next week, and hope you have a great rest of your week, and you know where to find Boston Balling. So good night, everyone, and talk to you soon.